On today's episode of the Mark Titus Show, Pac-12 After Dark lives on. Arizona upsets Iowa State in overtime thanks to a combination of the two most unpredictable forces known to man, late-night West Coast basketball and Caleb Love. You put those two forces together, you get a 60-foot shot at the buzzer in regulation to send it to OT. Caleb Love was not good in this game, not good at all, and yet he hits the big shot. Played better in overtime, and Arizona gets a big one. Arizona sneakily not ass.
No.
Sneaky not ass. Arizona had a dreadful non-conference run there. And I was worried. I don't know if everybody else was worried, but I was worried going to the Big 12. Arizona, obviously the Big 12 in the last few years has been probably the best conference in college basketball, and they're stepping into a new conference. Going to have to take longer flights to travel. Maybe not. I don't know. It's just something that feels convenient to say. Maybe actually if you break it down, in the Pac-12, they were taking long flights. Point is, new conference, new teams, very, very loaded college basketball conference they were stepping into. Didn't have a great non-conference. I was very worried about Arizona, but they seem to be back. They're playing great basketball. They're, I think, second now, right behind Houston in the Big 12.
One loss, and Houston has
one loss. Big win over Iowa State. Curtis Jones came back down to earth. I've been pumping his tires for a while, and how could you not? He's been scoring the ball almost as well as anybody in the country. Had a dreadful game in Tucson, but that's okay. I still like Iowa State long term. They're banged up. Got to get guys healthy, and they'll be good. But yeah, just an insane shot to send it to overtime. And I guess on the Iowa State side of things, I don't know. If a guy doesn't make a 60-foot shot at the buzzer, you win the game, and you're like,
you got to guard that.
Yeah.
You got to stop that.
Get a hand in his face. Elsewhere around the country, Kentucky gets a huge one. Talk about banged up teams. I think everybody on Kentucky's roster has been hurt at some point this year. It feels that way. But then it also feels like they have more guys that they're just like flipping over couch cushions and finding new players to just come – get 15 minutes in a game for them. It's crazy how deep this team is. Kentucky goes to Knoxville. No Lamont Butler. No Andrew Carr. Kerr Kriisa is still obviously out. He's been out for a while. Who knows when he's coming back, if he's coming back at this point. Like he's starting to get into the zone where when a guy's out for long enough, I almost forget about him. And I just assume he's never coming back, which I don't even think that's even kind of true with Kerr Kriisa, right? He's like supposed to be.
Yeah. It should be like
kind of any day, but he's been gone for so long that like they were talking. I was watching the game and they kept talking about the guys who were out, and they just kept saying Lamont Butler and Andrew Carr. They don't even mention Kerr Kriisa because he's been out for so long. But anyway, the point is Kentucky down a handful of guys still gets a massive. They still get a massive win in Knoxville. In Tennessee, the team that was 14-0, ranked number 1 in the country, has now lost 4 of 7. It's going back to when Florida beat them by 30. It's been a rough stretch for Tennessee, and Tennessee is 4-4 in the SEC, and it's not every game have they lost by 30 like they did at Florida, obviously, and they're losing to some decent teams. But is it panic button time for Tennessee in terms of like national championship, Final Four type stuff for a team that was again number 1 in the country, last undefeated team? Maybe it's time to be worried a little bit. Alabama last night, huge win in Starkville over Mississippi State against basically Josh Hubbard and whoever else was on the floor. Josh Hubbard and company. Josh Hubbard what a performance, 38 points. He's so fun to watch when he gets hot. But Bama has – what did you say before we started recording? Bama is like you can't ignore Alabama anymore. You can't ignore what's going on with this Alabama team.
Right?
Yeah, Alabama is playing their way into that top tier right now, and it's they are a force to be reckoned with, and it's setting up to. I'll just say this: I'm watching after Bama beat Mississippi State last night. As quickly as I could, I got to a computer, and I'm old, so I go to my computer. I just use my phone. I go to the computer to figure out when the Auburn games are going to be. February 15th, by the way, is the first time Auburn Alabama played. But that like I just immediately Auburn last night against LSU, like it was they got out to a lead and just kind of held LSU at arm's length. It looked like LSU might make a game of it late, but just a professional win from Auburn, we'll say. They just did their business and moved on. But yeah, I was watching those two teams last night. I was like, give me Alabama Auburn, give it to me now. I need it badly. What else happened? UConn flirted with disaster against DePaul. DePaul has obviously lost 1 million Big East games. They beat Georgetown this year, but DePaul has lost like 1 million out of their last 1,000,001 Big East games. And had UConn. They were up on UConn for like 30 minutes, and then UConn started. You basically just got their heads out of their ass to start hitting shots and guarding a little bit, and got the win against DePaul. But UConn was flirting with disaster yet again. Duke held off NC State. We almost got a upset in Cameron. Dude's puking. Cameron Crazy's passing out. Wild scenes in Durham, but Duke hangs on to beat NC State. And then Maryland, Wisconsin. I mean, we can talk about this Maryland team. I'm very high on Maryland. Maryland got a big win against Wisconsin, and suddenly you look up and Maryland's somehow unranked, but goddamn, they're good. Yeah. They are very, very good and very deep, and are stacking up some impressive wins as of late. So a lot to talk about in college basketball. We'll do our best to touch on all of it. I also have fraud power rankings coming, by the way. Fraud power rankings are coming up. But yeah, let's talk some probably SEC, honestly, because we might have to talk about Bama. We might just have to talk a lot about Bama. Let's get into it. All right, I guess we'll start with Alabama, the team that was ranked second in the country in the preseason. Bama's the number 2 team. We talked about that last show, how it was Kansas and Bama, and then everybody else kind of entering the season. And Kansas has fallen off a little bit. We spent a lot of time talking about Kansas last show because we were coming off of the Houston debacle. But Bama was right there. Coming into the season, there were a lot of people that felt like Alabama should be the preseason number 1 team. That was not if you were someone who believed Bama was the best team coming into the season. I don't think you were on an island. I don't think that was a crazy thought to have. Maybe it wasn't the overall majority opinion, but it was certainly a fine opinion to have, like, given the talent they have and the system they run, and coming off a Final Four. I don't know. It was there were a lot of reasons to be very high on this Alabama team. Non-conference, some bumps along the way. I think for me, the 2 things that stood out was the Purdue game, where Purdue just kind of dominated them, frankly. And it wasn't just that Purdue won; it was that Bama looked. Again, like, I'm just being honest, like, it felt like Bama was just, like, not built for the moment, and Bama was, like, mentally weak, and Mackey Arena was just fucking eating them alive, and that was very concerning for me because I felt like Bama was returning a lot of guys. They are a team that obviously no team is a finished product in November, but they were not a team like a Duke, where you're like, there are a lot of pieces, but let's see how it fits together, and they're young, and let's give them time for March. Like, Bama to me was like ready-made. It's like, let's fucking throw them out there and let's get it going. And they go to Purdue, don't play particularly well. And then not too long after that, Mark Sears, even though they beat Illinois, Mark Sears doesn't score, and I'm scratching my head like, what's going on with this team? What's going on with the pecking order? Right cell blows out his Achilles. Was it the Achilles? ACL. They lose their best shooter. But there were just a lot of bullet points for Alabama early in the season. What was it? Achilles. Ruptured Achilles. So they lose their best shooter, which they're a team full of shooters, and that's what they do in Bama, is they shoot threes, and it's not like he was their one guy that can shoot for them. But I don't know. There was just like a run there where every time I would check in on Alabama basketball, it wasn't like, oh my God, they're going to miss the tournament, right, or this is a complete disaster of a season. It was just like, yeah, I don't know if they're ever going to reach their full potential. I don't know if we'll ever see the Alabama we were hoping to see at the start of the season, because it just felt like there were a lot of forces working against them. And I say all that to say that as the calendar is about to turn to February, Bama's back. Bama is absolutely back, and Bama does. I am comfortable enough saying that Bama belong. I don't know where the tiers are in terms of, like, Iowa State was a team that I believe. I know Auburn and Duke are at the top. Mm-hmm. I thought Iowa State was up there with them. I still probably do think that. Like I said at the top, like, I'm not letting one heave from Caleb Love change that. Like, if Iowa State wins that game, I'm certainly not arguing that they need to drop down. Mm-hmm. They obviously lost, but at the same time, Arizona's not as bad as I think people think they are. McHale Center's a tough place to play. Like, I don't know, I'm not overreacting to that, and I think Iowa State's still probably in that group. But anyway, Bama is, whatever that top tier looks like, Bama is in it. I don't know if they're at the top of the top tier, but they are absolutely in the top tier. And like I said earlier, I cannot wait for Auburn Bama, because that's just going to be a fucking battle. Both games that their players are going to be so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the saying is buy low, sell high, right? Looking back, and we kind of did jump off the Bama thing. It's not like anyone like jumped off and said this team can't make a Final Four, like you said. Bama went from the top of the world and just kind of got forgotten about in all these conversations when we're talking about the best teams. But looking back, Titus, they're 18-3.
Yeah.
November 15th, when they went to Mackey Arena, that was probably the best atmosphere we've seen this year.
Yeah.
That is a tough place to play. It's early. I know Purdue lost a lot, but they also brought some back from a national. They were prepared and ready to go from a national championship, game team. And then they lost on a neutral court to Oregon. From there, their wins are still Illinois. They beat Houston. They beat Creighton. They beat North Carolina. And now they're rolling in the SEC. I guess they
won in Lexington. Yeah.
Like, why did they fall off a cliff in these discussions? Because it doesn't look like they should have.
For me, it was the Purdue game was pretty tough. Like, it was, I don't know. I watched the game, and at no point did I feel like Alabama was. They ended up. What was the final score? They lost by 9.
Lost by 9, but Purdue won that game.
It wasn't a total blowout, but it was a total, like, if you watched it, just Purdue was in control from start to finish, and the game was played on their terms. And Bama was breaking a lot of threes, though, so maybe you could just argue that, like, it was a make shots game, and if Bama was shooting like they know they're capable of, which is sort of the story of them early in the season, is they are not shooting threes. I think if you look at what their 3-point shooting percentage is as a team, it's probably not as indicative of how good they actually are shooting the basketball. Like, they hit, like last night, they hit 15 threes or something?
Did.
They're a team that can shoot threes. They're obviously, like, as long as Nate Oates is the coach, that is going to be the point of emphasis, is we're shooting a ton of threes. And you imagine in practice, they're practicing a ton of threes, and they're recruiting guys that can shoot threes. So even if you're looking up stats and you see that Bama is not shooting the ball well, they are never a team that, quote unquote, can't shoot. They're never going to be like a Michigan State is this year, where it's like they're finding ways to win, but they can't shoot. They are a 3-point shooting team, and I guess maybe it's just as simple as, like, earlier in the season they weren't hitting shots, and now they're starting to hit shots. Maybe they're just a make shots team. But yeah, I think the reason I got off of them was because the Purdue game was just like was burned in my mind. It's 2 Final Four teams playing each other early in the season. A lot of hype in that game. 2 of the best point guards in the country playing against each other. There were just so many storylines and so many things to be excited about with those 2 teams playing that I was very locked in on it. And I came away, like, very disappointed in Bama's performance. Mm-hmm. The Oregon game, whatever. Oregon's a good team. It was a neutral. Like, those losses kind of happen. And then Ole Miss, which wasn't too long ago, that one was another one where it's, like, sort of hard to unsee. Mm-hmm. It was hard to unsee Grant Nelson throwing the ball over the gym and Ole Miss just having Bama in hell. And Bama thinks of themselves as the best offense in college basketball. It's just like a well-oiled machine of guys that are playing, like, NBA-style offensive. You're open, shoot it. You're not open. Draw another defender, kick it to the guy who is open, he'll shoot it. And, like, just, when Bama's rolling at their best, it is a beautiful, beautiful style of basketball to watch. So to watch Ole Miss go into their home court and just fucking wreck their offense and make their offense look like they can't complete simple passes, that was sort of hard to unsee too. So I think that's really it. It's like when Bama crashes out for me, it sticks in my mind. And again, like, it's so stupid because we're talking about the team. Like, they beat a very good Illinois team, but, like, even the win against Illinois, it was like Mark Sears didn't score. This is crazy. Like, so I think that's what it is like I had such a spotlight on Bama that when things aren't going right, I'm paying so much attention.
That's what it feels like.
That the scrutiny is turned up so much that I don't give as much grace to Alabama ups and downs as I do other teams.
That's what I'm getting at. Is
I had, like, such high expectations.
Right. Like, at the end of the day, they're 18-3. They've gone to College Station. They've gone to Lexington, and now they've gone to Mississippi State. When we talk about the SEC and how you win this conference in the regular season, we've talked about going on the road and having to win those games that other teams might not. So that's one thing that they can hang their hat on.
Yeah.
It must be pointed out, though, that they still have –
the gauntlet's coming.
Right. So if I'm playing devil's advocate, because at the top I said, I think Alabama's played their way into a top 3 name in college basketball. They still have Auburn twice. They still have at Tennessee, and they still have Florida for the only time this season, and they still have Kentucky.
That final stretch is fucking absurd, dude. Really starting – I mean, this is my mostly sports bit. I like to read football schedules, and I make fun. But, like, I've worked myself into a shoot where every time I read schedules as a joke, I actually sort of get into it. And
okay.
I sort of like got to a point where, like, I actually do find myself, and this is a great example of that very thing where, like, I mock the idea of just reading a schedule, but then I look at Alabama's basketball schedule and I'm like, oh my God, I have to read this thing. I need to read the whole thing. So they have Georgia at home on Saturday. Georgia's a good team, but let's be honest, Alabama should handle them rather easily. They go to Arkansas, who's not good, but Arkansas has talent, so crazy shit could happen. But I expect them to win those two. Then it gets very real. Texas is a bubble team. They're not that great. Trey Johnson is great. Texas they have a fuck ton of talent. They're I don't think they're particularly well coached, and they don't play. I don't know. They sort of feel like a roll the ball out team, but they have a fuck ton of talent. And the leading scorer in the SEC, and Trey Johnson, like he's a freshman that I really haven't talked about much at all this season. But throw him on the pile of all the great freshmen in the country. And they go to Austin to play Texas. That's a sneaky tough game, even though Texas isn't going to be ranked or
and they will be looking ahead to Saturday as well, because the whole college basketball world will be waiting for this Auburn-Alabama game.
Leads up to the Auburn game, yeah. So you're going, I'm saying like starting February 11th. So their next two should be by the standards of what's coming. The next two are like the warm-ups.
Yep.
The Georgia and Arkansas are warm-ups. Texas could be a little bit of a warm-up, but that's sneaky. That's a sneaky trap game. Then it gets real. Then it gets really fucking real. You play Auburn at Missouri, Kentucky at home, Mississippi State, who you just played last night, and it was a great game, and Mississippi State probably should have won, sort of choked away at the end. Just a great game, very evenly matched teams, it felt like. Then they go to Tennessee, then they play Florida at home, then they go to Auburn to close the season.
I mean,
those last three games are absurd.
It's sink or swim. Like, we're going to find out, and we've said it, like, is Alabama worth a team like throwing a flyer on to win the SEC right now? I mean, they're going to be in contention when it comes late February, but also they're going to have to prove it. And that's a good and a bad thing, Titus, because good-wise, all right, you need to make up ground on Auburn. You get them twice.
Alabama's still in the mix to be the number one overall seed in the NCAA.
100%. They're 18-3, and they've got 5 of the top 10 teams.
They will play. It's either them or Auburn will play the hardest schedule in the country going into the tournament. I don't know who's going to be number one. I don't really know how to. I mean, it's like you're splitting hairs at that point. But yeah, they're gonna have one of the hardest, if not the single hardest schedule in college basketball. And they'll play Auburn twice, like you said, maybe 3 times. Maybe they meet in the SEC tournament. But yeah, that does seem the SEC race. Not to pat myself on the back. That's not what I'm doing here. But when I did say it was Auburn and everyone else, and then Alabama is the one team that we were kind of thinking might still be in the mix. They sort of have distanced themselves. I think Florida's still alive. Florida's. I don't want to fully give up on Florida yet. Tennessee has fallen back though. Tennessee's definitely Tennessee's not winning the SEC. I think at this point, Tennessee, who again was the number one team in the country earlier in the season, I think it's safe to say that Tennessee just has problems scoring the basketball. Tennessee is, they're toast as far as SEC contention, but it is sort of shaping up like we expected it to, where Auburn's the class of the league, but it's something you have to continuously earn. You can't just take the crown in January and say it's ours.
But they're
gonna have to hold on to it towards the end of the season here.
To talk about the depth of the SEC, and you've said this a million times, but where would you say Tennessee is right now? And Tennessee's 17-4, and they're currently, I believe, a top 10 team.
They were what, like 6th, I think?
9th.
They were 9th in the most recent poll.
Oh no, I'm saying in the SEC.
Right they're 9th. Oh, I was saying
they are in 9th.
They're 9th place.
They're in 9th.
And I think they're 6th in the country. Were they 6th? Were they 8th? They were. Oh, Houston was 6th. They're 8th. Tennessee fell to 8th.
Well, they're 9th in the SEC.
They're 8th in the country and 9th in the SEC.
But I'm with you.
That's crazy.
The more we see them, the more we see that they're not going to string together.
They. I'm a broken record with this stuff, but it's just the things that stand out to me is like they just don't have plan B. They don't have any sort of. I mean, it is like. I'll give credit to Milicic, who was better against Kentucky. Like we shit on him and said like we need more out of this guy, and he played a little bit better, but he's still Tennessee's misses. Like you gotta when you watch Tennessee basketball, you gotta turn your volume down because their misses are so loud. Like I've never seen a team like clank threes just so fucking like when they miss so bad. It hurt. Like they don't miss short or left or right. They miss all at once. They somehow they'll miss threes a little to the left and a little to the right at the same time somehow. I've never seen anything like it.
Should go in.
Like most good teams, when they miss shots, they miss it like one direction. You know what I mean? Like the good shooters are always on line, and it's either long or short. That's it, right? The good teams, like if you're not necessarily the best shooter, like you had the right, power on the shot or the right distance, but you missed it a little left. You shot a little left because you're fading, or you're, you shot a little long. I swear to God, Tennessee finds ways to like every time they miss, it's like long and to the right, and it clanks off of it was crazy to watch. Like Kentucky was leading this game late, and Tennessee had so many threes down the stretch that I forget the situations, but they're down like 5 with like 2 minutes left, and it's like if we can just hit a 3 and then play and then get a stop, and we're back in business. And oh my God, how many wide open threes do they have that they're bricking? Lanier hit one, and the place erupted because they felt like they were getting manna from heaven, like they'd never seen anything like it. But yeah, I could not be more out on the idea of Tennessee's offense, which is shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that's watched Tennessee through the years, but. Last year was so different. Last year, I mean, Dalton Connect was so fucking good that you couldn't say that about their offense. But I've seen enough this year to, early on it felt like Chaz Lanier might be enough to be.
I mean, they started 14-0, Titus.
It felt like between like Gainey off the bench and Lanier and Zakai Ziegler can score, and it felt like they might have enough to replace all these guys step up enough. They might be able to replace. The loss of Connect, or at least you don't even need to replace 100%, but just like have an adequate offense. But holy shit, dude, it's brutal to watch. It's very brutal to watch, and that's not to say they don't have good individual players, but like I'm out on Tennessee and as a national title contender, I should say. Like I still think they could have a decent year, and
could they? So they're the ultimate definition of fool's gold when they started 14-0, and we're talking about like, all right, their biggest wins. They beat Baylor. Well, turns out Baylor's not as good as we thought they were. They beat Illinois. Well, turns out Illinois is not as good. We're like, all right, well, SEC's play starting, and they have on the first Saturday they have to play Arkansas. They beat them by 24.
Yeah,
well, Arkansas is not as good.
Arkansas is not good.
Now that they're getting into the heat of this SEC schedule, they've lost 4 of 7. Titus.
Yeah.
What's to tell you that they're going to go beat Florida on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, their best win is probably the second game of the year when they went to Louisville and just smacked Louisville around. They beat the shit out of Louisville. That was the Pat Kelsey going around campus like, we're back. That Pat Kelsey, they got it rolling though.
They really do.
It worked out well for him. But I remember that well when he was like, hey, everybody come out. We're gonna handle Tennessee.
It just popped up on my TikTok feed again yesterday, and it's like people are like, yep, and then he's like, bring your friends. They're like, okay. He's like, tell them to bring their friends.
Oh, that was so awkward.
You got it.
You guys going to the game? They're like, yeah, coach, we're going. He's like, but are you going?
Are you going to be excited when you're there? Yeah, coach.
How hard you going to clap? Let me see that clap. Like, coach, God damn it. Leave me alone.
Coach, focus on the game.
Yeah, I think like I kind of, it's important to say this over and over because I think college sports are different than pros in that there are different expectations for every team. In the NBA, you're a good team if you're capable of winning the championship. If you're not, you're a bad team and you're a failure and get the fuck out of my face. Like that's kind of, everyone has the same standard in the NBA. And obviously there are some franchises, you got your Lakers and your Celtics that believe that they should win the championship every year, and the Hornets are like just here for a good time. But that is how the league is structured, is like we're all working towards the same goal, right? The difference in college is you can have teams that like they make the Sweet 16, they finish in the top half of their conference. That's a great year.
Right.
And it's not fair to point to a team like that and say, you fucking suck. Like that would be kind of harsh, right? So I got to kind of check myself at times because with Tennessee, I am, even though Tennessee's never been to a Final Four in the history of their program, I think this iteration of Tennessee basketball, I'm holding them to that standard that like they have, in my mind, throughout the regular seasons and even at times in March Madness, and they've had rough luck, especially when they play Purdue. I think Tennessee is a program right now that should be held to that standard where we are watching them saying, can they win the national championship? So when I say that like I'm out on Tennessee, I don't mean that like, Tennessee's gonna lose by 20 in the first round and they're fucking frauds and everyone sucks. You know what I'm saying? Like there was a moment in time where I was like, is Tennessee a national title contender? I think at this point in time, it's definitively no for me. So, I think that's what I mean by out. But like, yeah, they can make the Sweet 16. They could. I think they're still a good team in there, and I still. If they're like a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, I don't want to play them.
I agree with that, but
I don't want to play them. But
so looking at what they have coming up and looking at their record since they've actually gotten to the SEC, this team is going to go from being the number 1 overall team in the country. I think they're going to be like a 4 seed.
Yeah, yeah.
You're going to be pissed to see.
They're gonna fucking wreck somebody in the tournament. But yeah, but then when they go up again, I don't know. Like they're a team that can throw a wrench in the. I feel like that's what their destiny is they're a team that can throw a wrench in someone else's national title plan, but they're not actually a serious national title. Like if they're a 4 seed and they play, we saw it a couple years ago when they played Duke in the NCAA tournament, and they just beat the fuck out of Duke. Like literally, they were just like fighting. Like Kyle Filipowski's just looking at the bench like, Coach, what do I do? And Shire's like, I don't know, Kyle. Like maybe toughen up a little bit. Yeah. Maybe that's the scenario. Like Tennessee's a 4 seed and they get in Duke's bracket and they play in the Sweet 16.
That's what I'm saying.
And I think Tennessee is capable of winning that game, but I've seen enough to believe that Tennessee cannot win 6 in a row in the NCAA tournament. They're not going to be able to win. Their offense is not good enough. But yeah, I would be terrified to play them in the tournament because they can just beat the fuck out of you. Their defense is good. It is a little overstated though. I will say that like their defense hinges on just being so physical. And I don't know what the metrics say, but like you're watching the Kentucky game and Jimmy Dykes he's obviously an SEC guy, so he's going to carry water for all the SEC teams, and every team he's like Zakai Ziegler might be the best player in the country, and Tennessee has the best defense in the country, and Kentucky is the best offense in the country, and you're just like, Jimmy, calm down, man. Like not everything can be the best. But yeah, Tennessee is a lot of people believe they have the best defense in the country, and they're certainly up there. I don't think though. I think so much of that hinges on like being physical and like I keep saying with them, what is the plan B when the refs are calling a little tight? What is the plan B with foul trouble? What is the so I don't trust that they have a malleable defense, if that makes sense. I trust that they can beat the absolute fuck out of you, but yeah, I don't know.
If I was to guess, I probably not a 4. I would say they'll probably be a 3. Can we match up maybe Houston being a 2 seed in Tennessee?
Oh my God.
How would you like that or hate
Jesus.
that? I want Houston, Tennessee in the Sweet 16.
I would love it. I would love it because I would know going in what I'm going to get, but I think America would hate it. I think like you'd sell it to the general public as like a
slugfest.
That would be a Sweet 16 3-2 game.
Yep.
Yeah, and you would sell it to the public. You'd be like, these are the 2 best defenses. This is going to be awesome. And then they would watch the game and be like, holy shit, 44-39 final would not be fun. Kentucky won't go away. I loved Kentucky at the start of the season. I think I've cooled off on them being national title good. I don't think their defense is good enough. They have been banged up though, and that's kind of the thing. Like I'm sort of waiting to see what the final product looks like because I just want to get all these guys back and healthy. And I think Andrew Carr is super important to them. I don't even know who their best player is. I think it's Owe at this point. I think he's probably the guy. Jackson Robinson's like the guy who's the most talented, if you want to call it that. Andrew Carr's up there, though. I think like when he's playing well, like he makes such a massive difference for them. Lamont Butler is like kind of the fucking leader. So like I think you technically have to say Owe is the best player, and that's no shade to him. Like for me to qualify like that, like he's certainly deserving of that honor if that's what it is. But Kentucky, the reason you'd be so excited about them is that you really don't know who their best player. You can't, if you're scouting for Kentucky, it's not enough to just start at the top of the scouting report and put Otega Owe at the top and say, all right, we got to shut him down and then we'll be good. If we can shut down him and him and him, we'll be good. Because you won't be, because there's a guy that's like 8th on the scouting report who might go off on any given night. But yeah, they are so deep. They are so fun to watch when they're on. I don't fully trust the defense, but I still I'm holding out hope that like if they get all their guys healthy, I guess there's a world where they can pull it back together. I won't be able to quit Kentucky is what I'm saying. I love Mark Pope and I love watching them. I love Kobe Brea when he's hot. Jackson Robinson, he gets going. Like they can go nuclear at a moment's notice, and they can make it look so easy. I just don't know if they can string together enough stops. And Tennessee helps them because Tennessee's offense is dog shit. But this was a massive to go to Knoxville and beat Tennessee without two of your better players, two guys you could argue are your most important players. It's just a crazy win, just a very impressive win.
It showed me that they can, because Kentucky wants to get up and down, doesn't really want to play defense. Tennessee wants to grind it out. It showed me that on the road that they were able to dictate the pace of that game and play in the 70s, which is a good thing. We talked about it before the show, though. Kentucky is way too, like, they have as good of wins in the country as anyone. They've beaten Duke and Gonzaga and Louisville and Florida and Texas A&M and Tennessee. They also can lose at any point because of their defense. So you compared them to an NBA team. What'd you mean?
Yeah, I told you before the show they feel like an NBA team in that in the way that NBA teams go through a schedule, and like the Cavs are a good example. They're one of the best teams in the NBA. They just lost 3 in a row.
Yeah. And it's not the end of the world.
Yeah,
NBA, you're allowed to lose.
And I don't think there's panic within the locker room, and I think you'd chalk it up as like, we weren't on tonight. That sort of happens. That's the feeling I get with Kentucky is that I think college basketball is obviously not the NBA, and there's fewer games, but it feels like every game matters a little bit more. So when you start stringing together losses, you start to panic. But Kentucky, there's like something about the demeanor and frankly like the style of play, but also like the depth. There's just so much. There's so much that goes into this Kentucky team where they can lose back-to-back games. They lose at home to Bama, then they go to Vanderbilt and lose, and then they just turn around and beat Tennessee. And if it was like a different team, maybe I'm saying they're too volatile and they're too hot and cold and all that. But I just feel like Kentucky is they just remind me of an NBA team. Obviously not talent-wise. Like it's kind of funny because it's the opposite.
Right.
Like they have a bunch of older guys, and they're not a team that if you're like an NBA fan, you could probably actually ignore this Kentucky team for the first time in how long? Like if you're someone that loves the NBA and you only watch college to see who's going to be playing in the NBA someday, you probably don't even really need to watch this Kentucky team. But the way they play and the way they've gone about the season and the ups and the downs and all that, it just, I don't know, it reminds me of like the way an NBA team would go through a season. And you just have like head-scratching losses. And obviously Ohio State's one of the best teams in the country. We all know that. And they're a lock to be a tournament team. But Kentucky,
I mean, aggregate-wise,
Kentucky losing by 20 was crazy.
If you take away the Buckeyes' 50-point loss to Auburn and 50-point loss to Maryland,
yeah, we
do have like transitive property weight to being the number one team in the country.
That sounded so good out of my mouth, just saying. Obviously, the Buckeyes are one of the best teams in the country. That felt so good.
I got a question.
Anyway, I think I'm out on Kentucky winning a national championship, but they're like the inverse of Tennessee in that their offense would scare the fuck out of me. And again, like you don't know where it's coming from. That's what would scare me, is that there are a lot of great offensive teams. I don't know if there's really a team in the country as balanced as Kentucky, where you truly have no idea who's going to be the guy that torches you on any given night. That would scare the shit out of me if I was.
I think you can shut them down in transition, though. If I was coaching against them, and you can take away their transition game, I think you can beat them. I got a question for you about Kentucky. For our good friends in Lexington, they don't have College Game Day this week.
This is the week.
This Saturday, Cal comes back to Lexington.
Yeah.
It only happened first of all, it only happens one time this year where they play each other. Also, it will only be his first return once. How is that not?
It's Carolina Duke.
It's Carolina Duke, and I don't know if you've been following, but Carolina lost again this week.
Carolina's ass.
That's bullshit.
That is kind of stupid.
That's bullshit.
Yeah, I don't like that. Why would they not go to? Are they trying to like protect Cal? Are they worried that the signs are going to be vulgar? Are they worried? Honestly, if I was a Kentucky fan, I mean, you gotta show out, and you gotta.
What do you think?
You had this game circled on your calendar, but now that we're here, now that the game is coming on Saturday, if I was a Kentucky fan, like I almost like wouldn't care that Cal's back. Like I think you won. I think you're going to win the divorce. You're in a good spot, but at the same time, they're gonna boo the fuck out of him, right?
Yeah. Did you see Cal talk about it?
No.
He first of all, I agree with you that like sometimes like just neglecting or not acknowledging that it's a big deal is actually more hurtful.
I think Providence with Ed Cooley, they should boo the fuck out of him because the circumstances of him leaving, and also like honestly, the program was in a good spot. I think they could get back to a good spot, but like it's hazy as to who's going to win the divorce. Like I think Georgetown is probably a better team than Providence, even though Providence just beat them.
Mm-hmm.
Georgetown should probably have a better program moving forward. But it's a little. There's a little bit of that. It's a little bit of like, fuck you, we don't want you, but also we care so much because actually deep down we did want you the whole time, and it's just like these conflicting emotions. If I was a Kentucky fan, I'd be like, listen, man, it's crazy that you left us when we kind of wanted to fire you there for a second. It's crazy that how all that went down. But it's actually kind of funny now because you suck, dude. You're completely irrelevant in Arkansas, and we have a good thing rolling now with Mark Pope and all that like, of course, when he comes back, you're going to like, have a reaction. But I think maybe that's why game day's not going, because it's like the temperature's been turned down a lot. Because I think we were expecting we were expecting Arkansas to be ranked. We were expecting Kentucky to be. I think coming into the season, I would have expected this game like Arkansas's ranked like 12th. Kentucky is maybe borderline ranked, and Kentucky's like. Maybe there was a world where like Kentucky's like a slight underdog, and now the crowd is like foaming at the mouth to beat Cal, and no, dude,
which
Kentucky's
is fair.
Just a better team.
My rebuttal to that would be, I don't know if you're talking about Kentucky, Arkansas right now, or North Carolina.
I know that's the problem.
So you like
it's Carolina sucks too, yeah.
So if you're looking at Saturday's slate, you have Florida going to Tennessee. Providence, St. John's. You're not going to say, but that's still an exciting game. You've got Missouri, Mississippi State. You've got Georgia, Alabama, Kansas, Baylor, all those, whatever. Texas Tech, Houston. I think UConn going to Marquette is exciting. If you're going to throw away Arkansas, Kentucky because it doesn't have the same luster that it was supposed to have, I guess you can
Carolina
say it's Cooper Flagg's one, game.
Yeah, it's just Carolina Duke is the.
Have you seen ticket prices?
I
want you to predict ticket prices.
Okay.
Game time. Shout out Game Time. Arkansas going to Kentucky. Get in price on Game Time. Arkansas
and Game Time is the best. The Game Time has the best deal. So this is okay. I'm just trying to all right. So if it's a high ticket price on Game Time, it's just
correct.
It's just a fucking absurd price.
But Arkansas going to Kentucky, it'll
be
the only time that they do it. What do you have?
Arkansas, Kentucky, get in price.
Yep. Okay,
Rupp Arena's big, holds a lot, so that factors into it. I would say Arkansas, Kentucky, the get in price is $190.
Wow.
Something like that.
It's $176 right now because remember you get 20 off on Game Time.
Okay.
But no, it's $176. Okay, so I would say that was a very good guess. Now I want you to do North Carolina going to Duke.
North Carolina Duke, smaller arena. It is Carolina Duke, so it is like the one game I imagine every year for Duke is the hot ticket, and people want it no matter how good or bad the teams are. So it's going to be way more expensive, but how much more expensive? I would say get in is $500 or $600. $600
for the first half or the whole game. $1,400.
$1,400?
And Carolina stinks, Titus.
Good God.
Think if it's
$1,400 just to get in the building?
Cooper Flagg's one time.
Oh my God.
Think if Carolina was good. Like think if this was a 1 versus 5 matchup like it's been. Think if this was a 1 versus 9 matchup. This is Duke versus 6-4 in the ACC Carolina team who's not going to make the tournament.
Can I say something about Duke right now?
Please.
As the number one Duke Laser.
Our listeners will concur with that.
Of this season, certainly. My glazing of Duke ebbs and flows given the teams. I think I'm pretty fair and balanced, to be honest. If I like the Duke team, I'll glaze the fuck out of it. If I don't, I hate them. So that's, I don't discriminate. I like what I like. Anyway, I have obviously loved this Duke team, and part of me throughout the year has kind of how I had the thought of Auburn with the SEC race, where I'm like, this. Everyone says this is going to be interesting, but what if Auburn just beats everybody? I've had that thought about Duke at different times through the year. Duke has lost 2 games. Obviously, Auburn's the number 1 team in the country. Duke's second because Auburn's only lost the 1. Now, they did lose to Duke, so it's kind of complicated. But the Auburn's played a way tougher schedule. Auburn should be the number one seed in the NCAA tournament if it started tomorrow. But Duke's 2 losses were to 2 teams that are not only experienced, but like start 8th-year seniors in their lineup. It's just like their 2 losses were very early in the season. They're a team full of freshmen, and their 2 losses were to Kentucky, who the average age of a Kentucky basketball player is 26 years old, and to Kansas, whose average age I think is 24 and a half. They lose down the stretch in these moments where, looking back, it sort of makes sense. A young team playing a very, very experienced team might trip over their dick in a clutch moment. And those are the only 2 losses on the year to 2 teams that are not the upper echelon, but pretty good teams. So pretty justifiable losses. Since then, Duke has run the table. There is a lot of chatter, obviously, that they are going to run the ACC table, and if they run the table from here and win the NCAA championship, I think they'll set the program record for wins, which is crazy because Duke is fucking Duke.
Good program.
So this could be the winningest team we've ever seen in Duke history. I say all that to say that. So that's the glazing part, Tate. I say all that to say this. I'm starting to get worried about Duke's defense.
Oh.
Duke was, in my mind, no question about it, the best defensive team in the country for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And even if the metrics didn't back that up, I think my eye test did. I think the versatility they had and the length they have. I think they're the tallest team in Division I, and everyone they throw out there just has long arms and can guard. They can switch everything, and Maluach is there as a rim protector to erase shit if in the rare occasions where you can beat your guy off the dribble. We saw it in the preseason when they scrimmaged Arizona State, and that was on television. I watched that, and I remember coming in and doing the show right after that and just saying, holy shit, Duke's going to have the best defense in the country. This is unreal. It's so unfair that you can put Cooper Flagg on the best scorer and then have Maluach behind him. That's just like it's a cheat code. The last few games, the Duke defense is not as strong as I would like it to be. Let's just put it that way. And I think the concern I have is NC State was raining threes on Duke. Mm-hmm. Duke's 2-point defense is undeniably awesome.
Elite,
like it's elite. It's I think it's the best in the country. I think their 2-point percentage or whatever on defense is the best in the country. So the way to beat them is you got to shoot threes. And I think teams are starting to realize that. And I think you're running into situations where, like, especially in the ACC, and you get like a team like NC State who's not good at all and is going into Cameron Indoor Stadium is like, fuck it, we're going to lose anyway. We might as well just jack up a bunch of threes. I'm a little worried about that part with Duke because, the Wake Forest game and then now the NC State game twice in a row. I haven't been watching every single game. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I was locked in on the Boston College game when they were up by 25 or whatever. But the 2 games that I've watched now, they have gone to zone defense. And they have not gone to a zone defense because this is something they practice and something they're like, we really truly believe in. They've gone to a zone defense out of a semi-sense of desperation. Yep. And that worries me for a team that I said is going to be the best. Like, if you are, in fact, the best defensive team in the country, Houston's not going to a zone defense. Tennessee's not good. Like, Tennessee, you're never going to see Tennessee be like, fuck, we can't guard these guys. Let's hit the panic button and go zone. And Duke's doing that, and it's working. But the fact that it's working is also a little worrisome. The fact that you're just like throwing out a zone you never practice, and that's better than the man-to-man defense. I don't know. I'm a little worried about that. I'm worried about that.
It's a fair concern because although they've won 14 games in a row, which is the nation's longest winning streak, they also really haven't. Pitt was a good win and they beat the shit out of them. But since December 4th and December 8th, when they were playing Auburn and Louisville, they've played that ACC schedule that we've said is just. So I would say as a coach, there's nothing worse than playing poorly but winning to cover it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like your players right now, I don't think, unless Shire's on their ass, unless Cooper Flagg's got some maturity to him, whatever it may be, they probably don't realize that they're not playing as good of defense as they have because they've won 14 in a row.
Right. And they're blowing out like dog shit Miami teams and dog shit Boston College teams. And they're like, oh, we're sweet. And they are sweet. They're a very good team. But if they're going to reach their potential, I need to see them lock back in. I don't know. Hopefully it was just a case. Like, NC State did go a little cold in the second half, but they were hitting everything in the first half. and then Shire goes to the zone, and maybe the zone will work for him. I don't hate the idea of zone as like a knuckleball you throw out there every so often.
But you're right. If you're doing it out of necessity instead of out of like, hey, this is what we want to do. Yeah. Like, hey, we want to zone this team up. That's fine.
Yeah.
If you have to switch your defense, that's not a good thing.
Yeah. I love a great zone, one possession of zone. Okay. I do love that. I love a not out of the necessity or desperation, just to throw them off, especially coming out of a timeout. I love that.
Did you guys ever?
I love the move where the other team calls the timeout to draw up a play, and then you just come out and play zone and just fuck up the whole play.
I got a question for you as a player, because I never coached with a shot clock. Did you guys ever switch between zone and man mid-possession?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. That was a thing we tried a couple different times. Some teams will do it. I'm trying to think of, like, Baylor, I think, toys with that at times, where we used to, like, toy with, like, the number of passes, where it'd be like we're in zone until 3 passes, and then we're going man.
Oh, so you guys would go zone to man.
Yeah, you go zone to man, which was easier than man to zone.
Probably, yeah, because you don't know where their players are going to be.
But yeah, I also, and I don't understand why more teams don't do this. We did this for a while and had great success with it. And then Jay Wright was doing it like crazy at Villanova. And I don't know why more teams don't do it. The soft press to just shave like 8 seconds off the shot clock.
Use the press to slow it down.
Yeah, you're not trying to get steals. You're just trying to like make them pass the ball a few times in the backcourt, and then by the time they initiate their offense, there's 19 seconds on the shot clock instead of 23 or whatever. So I guess that's only shaving 4 seconds. But you know what I mean?
But no, that's a huge deal.
Like we used to do that all the time, and I was like, this is fucking genius. And then I would watch Villanova games, and Villanova would press all the time. I don't think they forced one turnover with their press, where they would press like every single possession, never force them to turnover. But then the team would get the ball up the floor. They'd finally like get to the spot where they're ready to start the offense. They'd look up, and there's 17 seconds on the shot clock, and they're like, fuck, all right, we got to get going now. I don't know why more teams don't do that. All right, we got to do fraud power rankings. You mentioned College Game Day. I did not have them on the fraud power rankings, but I want to throw them in the honorable mention. College Game Day not going to Rupp Arena for Coach Cal's return to Lexington. I'm worried, by the way, that he's going to get a little more applause than he deserves.
Well, he was in his press conference the other day, and they asked him about his return, and he did one of those, what am I going to get booed?
Yeah.
Okay, well, fuck. But then he said he's had so many bullets go through his body that even if they shoot him, it'll just go right through.
What a quote. I think if I was a Kentucky fan, I would boo the fuck out of John Calipari when he returns with Arkansas. And then when he retires and comes back in 10 or 15 years, I would give him a standing ovation, if that makes sense. I do think that, like, all told, his run at Kentucky was incredible, even though he only won one title. And I think a lot of his critics are like, he should have won like 4 titles given the talent that went through there. He's obviously one of the best coaches, you know, in terms of accolades and wins and all that. That college basketball has ever seen, and you know, he's not. No one's mistaking him for the GOAT, but he is. He was undeniably successful at Kentucky and had a great run. And I think at some point those people will give him his flowers. Having said all that, to voluntarily leave to go coach at a in-conference rival is fucking crazy, and you should boo the hell out of him.
Yeah,
as long as he's Arkansas's coach, you should boo the absolute hell out of him.
My mind's going to, obviously, Jim Knowles just left Ohio State to go to Penn State. Yeah, I'm thankful for what he did. When Penn State comes back, you're not going to get a standing ovation out of me.
Right. But you know, like, as long as Knowles isn't like a total fucking dickhead between now and like 20 years from now, when they do like the 20-year anniversary of the Ohio State football national championship team, and they come out to the field at halftime and wave to the crowd, and then they announce like the coaches of the, you know, and they're like, Jim Knowles, I don't expect the place to boo the hell out of him. But, you know, you're absolutely right, though. But when he comes back to the shoe, fuck him. Quick break to talk about our friends at DraftKings. This ain't the little itty-bitty, teeny-tiny bowl. This is Super Bowl 59. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 59. Scoring touchdowns is the key to hoisting, the Vince Lombardi Trophy, and you have a shot to score big by betting on them at DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code Titus. That's code Titus, Titus. For new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5, only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. All right, I had College Game Day as on as an honorable mention list. The Cleveland Cavaliers have to be on the honorable mention list. A team that was on pace to maybe challenge for a 70-win season, losing 3 in a row. Tate.
Well, they won
let's
last
be honest,
night. I don't know if you saw that.
Are we still thinking this team can actually beat the? I rarely do NBA stuff with the fraud power rankings, but every so often, you got to call out frauds when you see them. Are we still thinking they can beat the Celtics in a 7-game series?
Listen. I'm probably the biggest homer in the company history. No, I don't think. I would say
the Celtics aren't playing particularly well right now.
That's the one saving
either.
grace is like.
But I think the Celtics are doing the thing where we won the title last year. Now we don't really care that much about the regular season. They're chilling. We've talked about last time we talked about the NBA. We made that point that like I think the Cavs. I think you guys are the Raptors and Hawks of the LeBron era, where you're fighting for the 1 seed.
We're gonna be the 1 seed
just to like feel like you've done something, and then the playoffs roll around and.
So I think the one thing, not to get too
Celtics
far in the NBA, but like the Cavs they're 5.5 up on the Celtics right now. They're going to be the 1 seed. What that's going to do for us is we're going to avoid a team like the Knicks in the conference semis. And I do think we'll be in the conference finals.
You'll make the conference finals.
So right now the Celtics would have to go, they could have to play the Magic in the first round and then have to play the Knicks in the second round. That is
a tougher road. Cody's a Celtics fan, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. Nobody knows it until about Game 6 of the finals. Then
Bro's over here talking about the Magic. Who gives a fuck about the Magic?
I want that. Dukes, White Boy Rick, I want that clipped.
Clip that.
Just send that to me because the Magic are a team that can win some fucking playoff games.
The fuck out of here. Number 5, please. Number 5.
Number 5 on the fraud power rankings. Oh, one more honorable mention. Xfinity, my fucking internet provider. My internet went down last night. I'm trying to watch college basketball, dude. And it's a personal problem.
Yeah, I'm sorry that
no one else. But I don't realize how coddled my life is. And really, all of us. I don't think I'm alone in that. I think all of us are in the same boat. That like if your internet goes down for like 3 hours, it's a fuck it. Like it's panic in the house, right?
Absolutely.
This happened last night, dude. I watched the first slate of games. I watched Maryland beat Wisconsin. Bama, Mississippi State tips off, and all of a sudden the internet doesn't work, and I think there's like something wrong on my end. There was just an outage, and I'm using my cell service, and I start looking into it, and it says there's going to be an outage till 1 a.m. And I realize in those moments, I'm like, I think if like the grid goes down, I am completely fucked.
Yeah.
But also, like, I kind of just want to be fucked. I don't know. Like, I don't want to be a survivalist. Like, I don't want to be one of those guys that's like, I got an emergency bunker for situations like this.
Yeah,
I want to be a guy who can watch college basketball.
100%.
If the internet's down, dude. So, fuck you, Xfinity. I was trying to watch Bama, Mississippi State, and I got to use my phone cell service bullshit. And God, what a rough night it was for me.
Yeah, I had a flight, about a month ago that they were like, hey, sorry, the Wi-Fi is going to be down. How did you guys, how was that even humanly possible to not have Wi-Fi?
I'm glad you said this about airplanes and Wi-Fi. I think there are two things. I think the internet going down and airplane problems in general, like your flight's delayed or whatever else. I have no leg room in this seat. I got put in. I had a 7th row seat. They bumped me and they put me in the 30th row. I think those are the two things that when you complain about them, the person listening is like, boo fucking who, dude? Champagne problems. Right. Like, get over yourself. And yet somehow every single human being on earth, when they deal with those problems, they're broken. Yeah. We're all broken.
They go right to Twitter.
But why is it that we have no, like, for all of us being broken, we have no empathy? Like, I hear myself complaining about the internet, and I can just feel everybody listening and watching being like, who gives a fuck, dude? Oh, boo-hoo, your internet didn't work for 3. And yet every single one of you know that if that happened to you, you'd lose your mind. You'd be fucking burning your house down like I was about to last night. You're losing your mind, dude. You're trying to watch Josh Hubbard go for 38. You can't even do it in the comfort of your own basement on your fucking big screen TV. You got to hold your phone and huddle over. Yeah, anyway. Fraud power rankings, number 5. Again, I don't do it often, but sometimes it calls for it that we have to dip into the NBA with the fraud power rankings. And at number 5 on the fraud power rankings this week is Jimmy Butler, who is suspended for God knows how many times this has happened now. The Miami Heat have suspended Jimmy Butler. It does feel like his days in Miami are done because they don't really seem to want him. He doesn't really seem to want them. And whatever. This is nothing new. really for Jimmy Butler, like he's done this at a handful of places, but for NBA stars, this has become the norm, and for a lot of people, turn them off from the league. But not a completely unusual story, except for the fact that Jimmy Butler was supposed to be different, Tate. Jimmy Butler, even in his other stops along the way, when he would inevitably crash out with the locker room or like the coaching staff or whatever else, and he was labeled as a malcontent and like hard to deal with and all that. I always like held out a shred of hope that Jimmy Butler was just expecting more from everybody else around him.
Right.
And that was the problem. And there was a part of me that was like, I want Jimmy Butler to be right. I want Jimmy Butler to be the good guy in this scenario. And I always gave him the benefit of the doubt because I so badly want an NBA where guys were wired the way Jimmy Butler appeared to be wired, which is that he doesn't seem, and again, maybe I'm overstating it, but this was my perception of how he carries himself, is that he doesn't seem like a guy who wants to be friends with other players in the league. He doesn't seem like a guy who wants to team up with other superstars to build super teams and just like kind of coast and whatever else. He's not like dapping up guys and grabbing dinner with him the night before games. Like, but my understanding of what Jimmy Butler is he's a fucking dog and he's there to kill you every time he steps on the court, and he doesn't give a fuck about that we played AAU together back in the day, or like, we both came up at the same time and know each other well. He's like, fuck all of you, I'm here to kill you all. And I love that. And I totally bought into this idea of Jimmy Butler and the Heat culture. And yeah, they're probably never going to be the best team in the league, but they're so easy to root for because there's some fucking dogs, dude, and we need this in the NBA. We need more of that.
Yeah.
That's what the old NBA was. That's what the 80s and 90s NBA was. That's when it was at the heyday. You got dudes clotheslining each other, and they're not helping them up. You're not helping your guy up after you clothesline him. Fuck that guy. He's trying to take what's yours. And I love that about Jimmy Butler. But as it turns out, he just might suck. He just might just suck. He just might just be like hard to deal with and just not. And all that Heat culture shit was just fraudulent. All of it.
Yeah, he was as likable of a, not even a rival, but just like an opposing player as you can have, because he didn't give a fuck. Well, turns out he don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
How do you trade for him, Titus? How do you trade? Like, dude's gonna be, so he makes $50 million a year.
Yeah.
And he's refusing to practice, walking out. He's been suspended 3 times in a month. How do you, like, who wants that?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, somebody's gonna take a swing at him, I'm sure, but
I don't know.
He's still super talented, but yeah, very frustrating. As he was supposed to be the chosen one,
I liked him too.
He was supposed to be the chosen one. He doesn't seem to be. At number 4 in the fraud power rankings, the old Big East. Speaking of like basketball back in the day and how things used to be, and how there used to be no friends and teams just flat out don't like each other. These coaches just flat out don't like each other. There was nothing like old Big East rivalries, man. They used to just fucking tip the ball off. It was like you watch a hockey game where they drop the puck, and then the second they drop it, everyone just wants to fight. That was basically every old Big East basketball game. Just fucking fight after fight. They weren't even really playing basketball. They were just beating the shit out of each other. But this week, the legacy of the old Big East was undermined by a game between VCU and St. Louis, where a fight broke out in the crowd. And I've watched this video 100 times. I still not really sure what happened, but there was a brawl, and I think the old Big East is fraudulent because maybe the new A10 is hotter than the old Big East ever was. I didn't realize VCU and St. Louis had beef like that. You saw this clip?
Yes, I saw the clip, but I don't like what.
There were like 40 people involved in this thing.
How do you get in a fight at a sport?
I don't know.
VCU and St. Louis, come on,
I don't know. I didn't realize they had like a rivalry. I don't know what fans were saying to each other. I watched it. I've watched it like 100 times. I can't tell. There's like the bald guy and the St. Louis guy with the hoodie on, the blue hoodie. Like I know he was obviously like at the center of it in some way, and like I don't know if he started or if he just was responding to something that happened. But you're watching like the fight unfold. There's like 0 punches thrown, just a lot of shoving, a lot of like holding on because like I'm falling. Oh shit, I'm about to trip over, and I'm holding on to you, but you're holding on to because you don't want to fall, and then now we all fall together, and then someone's coming in to like break it up, and now they're like kind of actually making it worse. One of the weirder fights I've ever seen.
One of the weirder fights, and one of the rules I live by in life. Like, I am not fighting at a sporting event. Like I'll talk all the shit on the internet. I'll blog. First of all, immediately you're going to be on camera. Like, this guy looks like an idiot, like walking up the stairs, like, let me at him, let me like point. But also the difference in elevation. Someone's got the higher ground. You don't know who his friends are. There's no chance that I'm.
That's why the Eagles, it was the Eagles Commanders right at the end of the regular season. Mm-hmm. That clip of the guy calling the the bitch or something, whatever.
Yeah.
He's like chirping at the. And then
they're like, "Why didn't you defend your girl?" Why didn't you defend
him? Like, what? You want me to fight at a football game?
No chance.
Yeah, that ain't happening. I'm not fighting at a football.
No, I'm tweeting it.
Yeah, I'll tweet about that
how
guy
mean
later,
you were,
and I'll think about in the shower like 3 days later the perfect thing I should have said to him. But yeah, I'm not fighting him. Number 3 on the fraud power rankings, Bill Self, one of the great coaches in the history of college basketball, Hall of Famer, legend of the game. Arguably the best coach Kansas has ever had, which is insane because Kansas is had some great coaches. Yeah, the guy who literally invented the game, and Fogg Allen, Roy Williams. They've had an unbelievable run of coaches, and Bill Self might be the best. But part of Bill Self's legacy is built on winning the Big 12 every year. For 17 out of 19 years, he won the regular season Big 12 championship. He did not win it his first year. Then he rattled off like 14 or 15 in a row, something like that. And for the last 19 years before the Big 12 expanded, Bill Self had won 17 regular season Big 12 championships. So there's only 2 seasons out of 19 that he did not win a regular season championship. And then enter Houston, among others, but Houston, into the Big 12 last year. That was Houston's first year in the Big 12. Houston wins the league immediately. Kansas, who entered the season, preseason number 1, finished tied for 5th. They went 10-8 in the Big 12 last year, lost by 20 in the first round of the Big 12 tournament to Cincinnati, lost by 20 in the second round of the NCAA tournament to Gonzaga. They just bottomed out. That was last year's team. This year's team's different, though. They were preseason number 1. They were supposed to be different. We're about halfway through the Big 12 schedule. They are 6-3 in the conference. They are in 5th place, and they obviously choked very, very badly against Houston, who is now still undefeated, and once again in their second year in the Big 12, and their second year in the hardest conference, quote-unquote, in college basketball. Houston has stepped into the conference, is completely dominating. It goes into Allen Fieldhouse, makes fools out of Kansas, and Bill Self, who runs the entire league, maybe he ran the entire league because it was a Mickey Mouse league, and now all of a sudden we get some other contenders in here, and Bill Self's just, he for 19 years he only lost the league twice. Right. He did not win the Big 12 championship 2 years, and now it's going to be 2 years in a row after Houston.
Yeah, it's a bad look. It's a bad look.
They're 6-3 in 5th place, and they've only lost. They've lost 2 at home. They've only lost the record for home losses in one season for Bill Self is 3. Now that team did go to the Final Four, so there's a silver lining there if you're a Kansas fan. They still have Iowa State, Arizona, and Texas Tech to come to Allen Fieldhouse. We might be looking at a 4 or 5 loss
at home
loss season. They've already lost to West Virginia and Houston, obviously.
Can I tell you something?
Go ahead.
I placed 2 futures on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
1, Kansas.
To win it all, or like Final Four?
To win it all. And I'm not saying they're going to win it all. But what I'm saying is, do you remember at the beginning of the season when it was like Kansas and then the rest of the world? Kansas, Alabama, and the rest of the world. They're 35-1 to win.
That is pretty crazy.
To win the national
That is pretty
championship.
crazy.
The other one was Florida. I think Florida still. They're 17-1 and they have 3.
Well,
If you put this motherfucker on.
I got a problem before.
How? What has he done?
No, Todd Golden's good, man. He beat the Chargers, as they say.
He did.
But at number 2, Todd Golden's going to be involved in this because at number 2 on the fraud power rankings, I'm putting the entire SEC, which was billed as the best conference in college basketball in the non-conference slate. Maybe the best conference ever is what people were saying.
Yeah.
Since conference play started, I didn't realize this. Till Archie Miller pointed it out. I didn't realize this. Do you know the SEC is 500 in conference play? The best conference of all time was 54-54 in conference play. I didn't realize that. I saw Archie Miller clip, and I was like, holy shit, dude, that's crazy. To just be 500 is nuts.
That set humanity back. That was the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
That is among the dumber things, yeah.
It shows, like, my favorite thing about it is, like, all right, he is a Division I basketball coach. Where he got that information was he was scrolling Twitter
Yeah,
saw someone fucking trolling.
He was on a burner account on Twitter. Yeah.
And saw someone be like make a point that you would in the fraud power rankings, like, wow, SEC since conference play started is 500. Not as good as we thought they were. And then he said it in a press conference. Because, Titus, my thing is this. Like,
and at no point did he, like, think, oh, is that good, bad, or, like, I wonder what the Big Ten is in conference play, and then look it up and be like, oh, they're 500. I wonder what the ACC, ACC's, wait a second. Oh, I'm stupid. Like, you would have thought he would have kind of figured that out.
Like, growing up, like, you look at these, like, people on TV and these coaches, and you think, like, they're just, like, the best and brightest and smartest people. And just working here. Not insulting them, but like the amount of like players and coaches and stuff that come sit in that gambling cave with us.
Yeah.
We're not that far behind, Titus.
We're not as dumb as, we feel like
we're not that far behind.
We're not as dumb as we're not as.
I'm smarter than Archie Miller. At least on the internet wise. He might be. He might get us basketball wise. That was a troll, Archie.
I don't know. Maybe he's got tunnel vision, man. He can draw up a set play, but he can't do basic math.
I heard some. Also, I love when he says I heard somebody say. Bullshit, you heard somebody say.
Yeah. You saw it on Twitter. You saw the tweet. You saw the troll tweet from a burner account. The entire SEC is 500. If you missed that, Archie Miller did a post. It wasn't really a rant, but he just was pointing out like the conference strengths, and someone had tweeted jokingly that the SEC's 500 because of course they are, because every team wins one game, and if two SEC teams are playing, one's going to win, one's going to lose. Archie Miller took that as like as some sort of.
He said it's hard to win in every league.
Some sort of measure of the league where obviously every league is going to be 500 every year. All right, number one of the fraud power rankings, old people, all the olds out there, and I'm going to tell you why. News broke this week that the tip time for the 2025 National Championship has been moved up 30 minutes. It used to be 9:20 Eastern. They will be tipping the National Championship this year at 8:50 p.m. Eastern to placate the olds, I think. I think the olds were complaining about this. They were saying that's way too late of a tip. We got to tip it off earlier. So they moved it up 30 minutes, and I don't like it. What's next? They're going to move it up another 10 minutes? Are they going to move it up? 5 minutes? Like what? Where does it end, Tate?
I'm putting Mark Titus on the fraud power rankings now. That is such a bad take out of you. You can, Titus, do you remember the days when you used to live in the great state of Ohio and you played for the Buckeyes? You can tell that you have lived on the West Coast for so long, and now you live in the Central Time.
I know. I'm worried. I was looking out for my West Coast guys. Yeah.
Do you know how much it sucks?
9:20 sucks. 9:20 Eastern would suck.
On a Monday night, Titus, where not everyone's job is to come in and talk about sports.
That would suck. Yeah, that would suck. But the old people won, dude. The old people. I just don't like the idea that they should move it up. But like, I don't know what the optimal time is.
Because it sucks for the West Coast if it starts at 7. That means it starts at 4. That sucks.
That would suck. Yeah, that would suck at 4 o'clock. Yeah, so it's going to be at 5:50 West Coast time now.
That's too early.
Yeah,
it's too early.
I don't really think about it that much, but I will say that like the national like last year it was in Phoenix or Glendale or whatever whatever they call whatever they Arizona. That it being out west and when you go to the Final Four and it does tip off earlier, I fucking love it.
Oh,
like
really?
As a guy that's going to all these, I want to ideally I will go to every national championship game for the rest of my life. The East Coast ones will fucking kill you. Like Indy's not East Coast, but Indy's on Eastern time. And I love when the Final Four's there. It sucks though. It sucks to then like have to.
Yeah, you'll do a live show.
Again, like I know it's champagne problems, but like obviously I would prefer to like start doing my live show earlier versus later. So that's nice. But yeah, I thought that was funny. I saw that announcement and everybody was like this was like a huge deal in the sport. It was like we moved it up 30 minutes. All the
power to the people.
Yeah, this is like the biggest. Yeah, this is probably like a bigger change to people than like NIL and transfer portal. They're like, oh my god, college basketball will never be the same.
I love it.
Oh my god, the national championship finally at long last. No, I actually love it too. I just wanted to take shots at old people complaining but I'm right there with them.
What is the Mason-Dixon line of old people, Titus?
I'm getting very close. Man. I'm almost there. Yeah.
I'll say this. There was a time where you would have considered yourself to be old now, but also as you get older.
Yeah.
37-80.
I feel like mentally, I feel like I'm just getting started, but also, I think socially I'm old for sure. I think I'm definitely old socially, just in the sense of like I met Cody out at the bar over the weekend, and I had one beer with him. It took it all out of me. I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I had one beer. I was on my feet talking to a guy in his 20s for 20 minutes.
Old head ass.
And I had to take an ice bath and a sauna and everything else the next day to recover. All right, couple shout-outs before we get out of here. I want to shout out VJ Edgecombe, freshman at Baylor, who very highly thought of coming into the season. Started a little slow scoring-wise. The athleticism was very obvious from the start. As a guy who doesn't pay a ton of attention to these guys as they're coming up the pipeline, but obviously here's names and here's chatter and all that. I was excited to see what VJ Edgecombe could do because I remember at the start of the year hearing that Cooper Flagg has pretty much always been a lock to be number one, and he's stayed number one. The Rutgers guys, I think, were flip a coin on who you like better coming into the season and who was going to be maybe the second best player. But there was a belief that maybe VJ Edgecombe could eventually be like the second pick in the draft, and maybe he's going to actually end up being the second best freshman. And then early on, like he couldn't get shots to fall, and he like couldn't really channel his athleticism. Like he was so obviously long and bouncy, and you could see the potential, but it wasn't really coming together. And it makes sense. He's a young player, and he's a true freshman, and all of that makes sense. Anyway. He's on an absolute tear right now. He is scoring the ball. I want to pull up his. Let me get the stats because I want to tell the people. I don't want to just use adjectives. I want to use cold hard data. Here is VJ Edgecombe in his last 3 games. He is Kansas State. He had 30 points. Was 3 for 7 from 3. Now, he started the year, so he was 0 for 3 at Gonzaga. He was 1 for 7 against Arkansas. So he's 1 for 10 out of the gate in his first 2 games, which were highly, anticipated and on national television. Everybody was watching type games, and he wasn't shooting the ball well at all, and wasn't scoring. He has 30 against Kansas State last week. Goes 3 for 7 from 3. Had 21 at Utah. Goes 4 for 6 from 3, and then at BYU in the loss, the overtime loss, which was an incredible game by the way. The other day, he had 28 points, hit 6 threes. He's scoring. He's just as athletic as he's always been. He's fucking balling out right now, and he's very, very fun to watch. And I just wanted to shout him out because he was sort of a guy that I saw early and was like, maybe he's not as good as I was thinking, and just kind of put him over here. Mm-hmm. Now it's time to get VJ Edgecombe back in your life because he's playing incredible basketball. Speaking of Baylor BYU, shout out Cannon Catchings, Brownsburg, Indiana. Freshman at BYU, had a perfect game in that game. Was 23 points, 8 for 8 from the field, 4 for 4 from 3, 3 for 3 from the free throw line. Incredible. Brownsburg, Indiana, dude.
Shout out.
49 states.
Who has more career points at Brownsburg?
Actually, I think I do.
Do you?
Because his senior year he transferred, so he didn't even play. He transferred to fucking he just left. He went to Overtime Elite.
Was that even obviously not Overtime Elite? Was that even like an option when you played
to go to Overtime Elite?
No. Like
would I have gone?
Like
to
you go,
Elite?
You go up in Brownsburg. You go to Brownsburg. You don't go to.
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes me feel old. Is like I couldn't imagine. Like when I was growing up, going to private school was a bitch move. Going to if you went to Cathedral, you were a bitch.
I think
if you're one of the kids that. If you were growing up in Brownsburg, I think I'm going to go to Brebeuf. You're like, fuck you, dude. What are you doing? We're trying to...
I agree. People talk about...
trying to win some games.
NIL sucks. Transfer portal sucks. I think the one thing that actually hurts my feelings the most about this new world, I grew up going to a high school basketball game every Tuesday and Friday.
Yeah.
We'd go watch the best schools. I have no interest in going to watch St. Edward's play, Spire Academy or whatever.
Yeah.
It sucks. Play for your hometown.
Dude. Play for your hometown. That's
like we did.
Like we did. Do everything we did. All right, that's the show. Great weekend of college basketball coming up. Duke, Carolina, but Arkansas, Kentucky as well. I think Riggs is going to go to that game. Maybe we need to get Riggs on the show after that. But we should try to set that up, Cody. I guess I could set it up. I don't know why I told you to do it. We should maybe get Riggs on.
I like that.
Get boots on the ground for John Calipari going back to Lexington. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. We'll see you on Monday.